we're always doing stuff like this at our house. To like kind of like
You know
tissue
what?
box
Use
or,
the media
like
like you can.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
That's really awesome for your husband to support you like that. That's cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
That he has that time. That's nice. Okay.
You can sit here if you want, then you're not bumping that table.
I'm like, I need my tablet.
We did something like that. We were making applesauce, and our neighbor kids.
Don't
were
start
over.
it yet. I'm putting lipstick on it.
Okay.
So my lips can talk for an hour. Blowing my nose and stuff like that.
We got Cynthia Tobias's audiobook,
Woohoo!
the one You Can't Make Me.
Uh-huh.
Where has it been all my life? Okay, that's
Okay.
all I have to say.
Okay. Okay. And even though your kids are young.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I want you encouraged right from the get-go, so that's cool. All right, so we talked about lion, beaver, golden retriever. We talked about the way kids feel affirmed. We talked about ways to perceive and organize information, correct?
Correct.
And Anita, just jump in at another time for that. We talked about ways to concentrate, and we were on that page. So, Anita,
Angela, language.
one thing I gotta do is it's page 24. If it was on, if it's still on the packet, you can see it.
All right, perfect.
It's this one right here. I think we had finished talking about structure. I've forgotten.
We are
Where's your
on
name
second
tag?
row, last one. After responsibility. So we didn't even do structure.
We didn't do structure.
No.
And your name?
Christina.
Christina. Okay. So, Christina, meet Anita. How old
Hi,
are your
Anita.
kids? Tell each other real quick.
6, 3, 4 months.
Okay, so 8
Years.
and almost 6.
Okay.
Woohoo. Okay, you have something in common. That's kind of cool. All right. So, in talking about structure, that pertains to whether your child is sequential or random. We talked about that last time. So if your child, and I want everybody to know, I had a gal here on Friday, I was going, I know she's random and I want her to feel affirmed. It's real important that we not put a value comment on how people order information and order their learning. Those of us that are highly sequential need to go A, B, C, D, and we need to go linearly. People that are random can start in one place up here, go down to another place down here, and end up in the same spot at D that the sequentials got to. They just got there a different way. So, the kids that are random can seem spontaneous. Those that are sequential are more of a planner. So the random kids don't mind being interrupted in their play, time to come work. These sequential kids will complain because they're into their project and they want to finish it. There's something that they have in mind that they were doing. And one parent took that kind of thought process back into her home, noticed that her son was extremely sequential, gave him a heads up, in 5 minutes, I need you to be able to stop what you're doing. So go ahead and walk out your thought plan with your activity you're doing, but I need you to be able to stop when I need you to transition to a different task. And so that's the idea of structure, is kids feel calmer when you work within their capacity for structure or not needed to be structured. And so doing that little assessment of whether they are sequential or random will help. And that was last week's talk, okay, 3D. When we look down at sociology down here, this whole list, Anita, just to bring it back, I forgot to tell you, This list came from Larry Fast. He's a homeschool dad. I don't believe he created the list, but he gave it to me because he's an educational psychologist. He's now retired, but he was working for Evergreen School District. And he said, Nancy, use this. This will help homeschool parents grasp the kind of learning environment to give their kids at home in the teachable moments, as well as the sit down and do tasks that a parent wants to do when they're teaching at home. The sociology, a lot of times you'll hear people will say homeschooling limits your social connections, and it's not good for kids because it makes them isolated. Not at all. I think first, a few things I'd like to say about that. Kids come wired with a certain capacity to have people go through their lives in and out. And it looks like this, and I'll tell you where I am. I enjoy being by myself because I'm an introvert. I enjoy one-on-one with friends. And when I was younger, I would attach to the adult on the playground, the teacher, and enjoy talking with the adult. So like this. I would do this one, this one, this one, or this one. Okay? I loved it, okay? These two, I was not competitive, so I could have cared less about being rah-rah on a team and winning. And I did not enjoy all of the data I was receiving from peers. It was overload for me because I could see everything about I notice things. I'm interpersonal in my wiring. I notice things, interpersonal and intrapersonal, so I see things between people. In one way, now I know that was a strength, but because that makes me a good on-target teacher, it takes me a while, but I really zero in on kids. But the thing is I can get overwhelmed in peers, okay, with groups. When you bring your kids to this building, or if you take your kids into other venues like Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, team sports, any kind of group thing that you're doing, whether it's at a church or anywhere, in family, even in family, watch how they navigate. If they're on a team like a soccer team, are they having the time of their life, or are they intimidated and undone? I mean, that's a thing. That's a wiring. When your kids are in peer group here at school, I would say that's why you want to be here and watch them in the peer group and see if they're holding their own. Can they be themselves? Do they kind of cave in? Do they easily withdraw and kind of go like this? Or do they actually have a sense of themselves as being separate, or kind of okay with, I'm like this is how our family does it, and then I come and join you, and I can find out who I am in this group. I keep myself going in the group, and then I can lead the group, and I'm still me. Those kinds of things are important. My daughter got distracted by being in a group because she loved watching the dynamic of the group. To this day, now I know why that's such a good thing. She makes a wonderful journalist. That's what she does as a profession. But in her younger years, she was noticing everything and taking in data, not being overwhelmed, but being thrilled, because she loved people dynamic. She was an extrovert, and she liked watching what everybody was up to, which meant that her attention was more on what everybody was up to on her peer level than on what the teacher was saying. That was just kind of how her wiring went, and it was a gifting in disguise. But I had to kind of watch it and guard it and know that if she was out here too long, she would be other-oriented in terms of her peers. She was also very competitive and loved being team, everything team. So how much of these different experiences and what type do you give your kids is more the question than we're just at home learning. And so we're not having any of these experiences. Actually, when you're home learning, you have different ages of kids learning to care for one another, your family. You may have aunts and uncles, grandmas and grandpas. You are teaching your kids all age groups when you teach your kids how to listen effectively to grandma and interact and present some learning to grandma or grandpa or to aunt and uncle. You're teaching your kids how to really be okay with all sorts of different levels of age groups, and that is socialization in real life time, right? So when they come here, notice whether your child is perhaps in one of these, self, pair, or varied, because that, or adult oriented, that is a child that could say, only want limited contact with a bunch of people because it just overwhelms me. So you can choose that in homeschooling. Do you have any comment about that? Any experience with that when you were growing up?
I personally, I felt like I started out with wanting to be around a lot of people, and then I came to this country from Romania,
Oh, wow.
and I experienced a lot of
Back.
unlikeness from people. They didn't understand my differences, and so they didn't want to hang out with me, be next to me in line. So it kind of, I withdrew myself and became withdrawn and
Yeah.
shy
Uh-huh.
and less confident, but I don't think I became introverted from it because I've always wanted to be around a lot of people.
You just had a hiccup.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but I feel like my 6-year-old goes from wanting to be around a lot of people to just wanting to do things by herself. If she's around a lot of people, she gets distracted, like not listening to the teacher, but she thrives on it. So it's kind of hard to know what.
Extroverts tend to get their energy from being out with people. They do. It doesn't mean they don't come back. And your daughter's young and she's exploring and she's getting a lot of different people's data coming in by being in class. So she's on a learning curve, and you're probably seeing swings back and forth. And so I'm thinking that you're probably going to be watching this over the next few years. This isn't an immediate thing. This is a judgment call. This is a, what is your child characterized by? Because that's where I finally got to. If my daughter's characterized by looking sidebar at what's going on in the room, if that's kind of what she's known as to me, if that's kind of her go-to spot, then I need to be careful of that. And I learned that over years. It wasn't just a one-year thing. Okay? So, and you might err in judgment. You might go, okay, you know what, we're not doing a team thing this year. It just put too much stress on you. We'll do we'll do this. We'll do 4-H with 1 or 2 other people. We'll do a knitting class with one other friend and auntie. So you just kind of change it up, and maybe you have more than one thing going on, but you're designing this. You're not just letting it happen. You're noticing the reactions, and you're making judgment calls and helping your kids feel in charge of the venue they're in. So say you want to come to class and your purpose, and if the teacher wants you to go and do a bunch of things for her, say, you know what, the first goal I have for myself as a home teacher is to watch how my son or daughter absorbs the group. I need to make sure that I help interpret that group to her or him. And I think that would be a very appropriate request. Let me sit in the back of the room for the first 2 weeks while I'm here, helping, doing my partner time. That is a priority to us, really should be a priority to the staff, is to be able to have you folks identify what your own kids are doing and how they're interfacing with being in a large group. So that you can go home, and as you're in the car driving home, you can debrief. When the teacher said such and such, did you hear? Or, what did you like about how you responded in class today? What would you like to be able to do? So you can just kind of interview them, and maybe they can begin to think, you know what, I'd like to feel more comfortable about, or I'd like to sit in a different place, or I would, and then you can help your child begin to advocate for themselves and to learn how to carry themselves confidently. Because I think that's real important. Or if you have something positive, if you were in the classroom and you notice they raised their hand and answered a question, I would definitely be sure that I affirmed them for that. I noticed you raised your hand and answered one of the teacher's questions. Way to be. I'm just really, really proud of you for that. That showed you were engaged. You were listening with what the teacher was saying. Even if they didn't get the answer right, I would say that. Because you understand, it isn't about getting it right all the time. It's about being brave enough to try to answer. Way to be. And use those little signal phrases. Way to be, because give them a thumbs up about something they did in class that day. You are their eyes affirming them while you're there. I would do that first before I would go racing around doing projects for staff. I really would.
I have one question. Your daughter being a socialite like she was she okay by herself too?
Yes.
Was she okay?
Yes. It was funny. She would spin it all out here and here. Then she would, like the plug would be pulled. She loved it out there. She'd get her plug pulled. She'd come back here. Occasionally she would come back here to me. But as she got older, she just went, and she just went, and then she went back out. It didn't take her long. That's hard to understand about an extrovert because she is an extrovert. But she just goes, I use it out here, I enjoyed it, I had fun. It's demanding on me to use it out there. She loves it. It's no big thing to come back and replenish a little bit and go back out there. For me, it's like, whew, I have to go home and take care of my feelers and my thoughts. And it's like, whoa, we're all different, and there's a reason why we're all designed the way we are, and she needs me and I need her, So that's good. Good question. Any other insights or questions?
Well, I was just gonna say, because I was homeschooled, and my parents are really reclusive. Like, they had almost no friends. Like, and they're still like that. Like, and so it was an interesting experience. Like, when I look at what I want for my kids, I want them to be around other kids. Not all the time, because I think, especially since I do have at least one that's pretty introverted, and I think that would be like, it would wear her out to be like all day, every day. But I wanted them to have a group that I didn't have. But the funny thing is, it didn't actually mess me up that bad.
Right.
Like, I had some other chances. Like, I went to boarding school, and then I worked at summer camp for like 5 years in a row. And so I went and filled those things, even though I got almost nothing. And then my sister and I are pretty much fine in social things, even though we did have kind of like not much of a start with it. So it kind of evens itself out, even if it is pretty extreme.
Nice comment.
So
it shows the resiliency and the flexibility of the human being, and that you made up, and the different experiences kind of compensated. It doesn't always have to happen just so, because we can't, do that for our kids. So thank you for that. I think the main thing, what did I bring this up for? The main thing is, do be have. Remember topic 1 is that you're guarding that do be have list. You are the one that's saying, what do I want my child to be like by the time they're 18? And your judgment calls, Anita, your parents' judgment calls were not perfect. But and neither were mine. And I talk with my daughter now, and I said, you know what? I didn't connect with your creativity and didn't get it soon enough. She goes, Mom, I'm totally good, because she recognized what her creative, innovative spot was, and she took care of it as she went along. So if we can impart approximations to our children, and I got to think of one time, I can have a do-be-have list in my mind. I got to hold it lightly and yield it as she gets to be an adult. But the other thing is that there's nobody that can perfectly parent. So one of the things that I liked imparting to Natalie was, if you see something that's not going well, and Mom's thinker, and I'm doing something as she got older, respectfully say, Mom, can I do it a different way? Or Mom, that's kind of like grating on me. Can I tell you what's going on? So help your child as they get older, and as they're young, to start carrying their learning and advocating for what they need, kindly, respectfully, with you still being the main one that's in control. Does that make sense? Any comment? Yeah. Okay, so this last one right down here. The physical domains of kids as they're learning. We're going to talk more about the need for kids to use their 5 senses when they're learning. The more kids are concrete in nature, the more kids are sensory motor, like they're very, very young, and they need to act out on their environment in order to learn. So basically, the 0 to 2-year-olds are really in motor mode. Everything's motor, they're learning. So they're highly using their senses. And then the preschoolers are doing the same thing. And then it kind of settles into a child that is kind of concrete, but maybe kind of exploring other ways. Maybe they really learn through their eyes. And so everything needs to be visual. Maybe they need to learn and process through dialogue with you or sing. Kids that hum while they read, kids that sing and like the jingles and whatnot are the kids that are using that feedback, that auditory feedback loop. So we're going to learn a lot more about that.
You're saying they're doing it because they're auditory?
Quite possibly. There are other factors, but we'll go into that as we go along. There's one more. There's a couple more profiles you guys can check off and kind of determine that. Kids that the body here means that they actually need to act on the environment in order to learn, and the finger means they need to touch it. They need to manipulate and do with their hands. So looking at the age, it's an age thing, but it's also as the kids get older. I had this one boy in my class as an 8th grader. He looked at his brother in high school, and he said, "My brother, I can never be like him. I'm a nothing." So it was a kind of a comparison thing he was doing. And I said, no. I said, you are designed for you. Let's find out what you are like. Don't look at the other guy. So at age 23, I saw that same young man. He goes, "I got it figured out, Mrs. Purdy." I go, "What?" He goes, "I am the best diesel mechanic on the face of this planet, in Clark County." So he learned that for him, his talent was working with his hands. And he learned that skill that he wanted to do that. And his brother's was more of a visual, logical, so he was more school-based and academic-based. The other thing about the physical aspect of kids is that our brains, if I have my data right, is about 80% water. So kids that come into class with a water bottle, good idea. Sip, The other thing is, I went to a workshop one time and they said the kids that are too hungry are not going to be retaining information. The kids that's a little piece of gum. The kids that need to chew are doing something motory. We used to say no gum in my class. Well, sometimes they need to chew something so that they can be deflected off of and concentrate. So you might explore, these are the kids that need that. Maybe a squishy ball, can be something like that, or one of these, bigger bouncy balls while they're sitting at their desk and doing something. Some of those kind of things, along with the food intake. That's not a piece of bacon, that's a piece of gum. Over here, mom had 4 kids. She said, "I have kids that get up late in the morning. I cannot get them to do anything else." With homeschooling, you can work, the realistic world is a realistic world. Eventually, they may take a job that causes them to have to get up and be ready by 7:30 to leave the house in the morning. But she used this kind of natural body flow with her kids to get to the the ones that got up late in the morning, slept in a little bit. She took the ones that got up early, and they worked on some of the tough subjects and got some things done. And then the other ones came in and they rotated out. So knowing when your kids come to life, like my daughter was an evening night owl, hard for me. Oh my goodness, because I'm a get up early in the morning person, but of course you have to go to bed earlier. So sometimes our body clocks are not the same. And know when your kids' body clocks are. Observe them. Okay? Work with them. Put that into your schedule when you're homeschooling. And then this mobility thing is that whole idea. Some kids need very little movement, can sit for long periods of time. Where I would start with this is I would watch when you are sitting down with a task and you're sitting right next to your child, how long can they stay on task? If you move away from that child and the task is not too difficult and it's an independent task, they've done it before with you, you know they understand it, but they're practicing it. Can you be in another room and they still do it? Or do you have to stay with what we call proximity? And how long can they stay in position on task before they, get off task and are looking around, or just are they distracted by movement in the room or by what they hear? That's that sound thing. So what I would say is just begin with noticing. Just begin with noticing. Maybe make a few notes to yourself.